We spent 2 years saving money for the surgery that was supposed to save my life. A few days before it, she gave everything to her brother. My name is Earl Greenwood, I'm 36 years old, and until recently, I believed my marriage to Quincy was rock solid. A stable partnership built on trust, mutual decisions, and shared dreams. But then a rare genetic condition surfaced, gradually chipping away at my well-being. Nobody could see it, but internally my organs were weakening. After countless tests, specialists, and hospital visits, I was finally scheduled for a life-changing operation. It was framed as my last chance at normalcy, an attempt to reclaim my health. Health insurance would pick up most costs, but not all. Out-of-pocket expenses loomed so large that Quincy and I dedicated 2 full years to diligently saving towards this day. Every extra hour I worked, every shift I took, all fun expenses cut, all so I could get better. We worked as a tight-knit team. I had a physically demanding warehouse job that fed most of our savings. Quincy, a freelance graphic designer, brought in irregular pay, enough to cover small bills occasionally, but nothing reliable. We agreed early on, any expenditure over $500 had to be mutually decided. That was a sacred rule. I never once questioned her contribution, I appreciated everything she did. I followed every pre-surgery step, arranged paid leave, secured rides to and from the hospital, lined up follow-up appointments, filled prescriptions early. I even triple-checked dates and times, wanting zero slip-ups. At last, with the final deposit in our joint account, just over $19,000, we were set. Then came the week before surgery. Quincy changed. She withdrew, spent hours on her phone, and grew emotionally distant. No fights. No complaints. Just silence. My first thought, she must be worried. I let it be, focused on resting and preparing myself mentally. The night before surgery, I sat at our kitchen table, logged into the joint account to make the final payment. That's when I saw, barely a few $100s left. My hands shook. I called the bank, frantically, and they confirmed a wire out earlier that day. The beneficiary? My brother-in-law, Ambrose, Quincy's younger brother. Everything in me froze. That money was not discretionary, it was life-saving. I confronted Quincy. No denial. Only a tired gaze, and an explanation that Ambrose needed help urgently. She thought I would understand once I heard why. She claimed he'd pay us back in a month. Urgently? I asked. But there were no answers to calm me. Only excuses. That money wasn't just spare cash. It was the only thing keeping my operation on the calendar. The doctor had already patched me in, without payment, they'd cancel, and cancel they did. With that, the surgery vanished. The devastation washed over me in waves. Physical dread, every day delayed was another day of damage. Emotional collapse, my carefully rebuilt world crashed in an instant. I called the hospital, it wouldn't happen without the deposit. They couldn't guarantee another date. They warned delays could worsen my condition. Blood drained from my face. I gathered myself, reached out to friends, to family. Carefully explained that we needed immediate help, no judgments, just money. A few small loans trickled in, but nowhere near enough. My parents were retired, Quincy's parents couldn't assist. My sister did what she could, but it barely covered a month of groceries. That account replenished by less than $500, then I transferred it into a new checking under my name alone. Quincy, she found out within days. She accused me of treating her like a criminal. I told her gently, I needed to guard our money. She called it betrayal, I called it survival. And with that, I moved into our guest room. I took my laptop, my medical papers, and left the rest of our home behind, no yelling, just quiet necessity. Freelance gigs dried up for Quincy. She asked me for money, like nothing changed. I told her to ask Ambrose. She walked out. That night, I heard her whispering to her mother on the hallway phone. The next day, her mother called me, pleading, upset, telling me to be reasonable, that, it was just money, marriage is more important. I told her I was fighting for my life, and we weren't having this again. I then blocked her number. As I sat organizing our financial paperwork, a cancelled hospital notice, transfer receipts, bank logs, I realized I had to protect myself. This was no longer a fleeting crisis, it was a fracture. Trust dissolved. I knew I needed counsel, options, because silence was a luxury I could no longer afford. I scheduled a consultation with a family attorney named Mr. Holden, a quiet man with a composed manner and decades of experience etched into every word. I brought every document I had, account summaries, the wire transfer slip, hospital paperwork, even screen captures from Quincy's social media where she'd shared ambiguous posts that seemed more like distractions than explanations. Mr. Holden listened carefully and finally said, "You have a right to protect your health. And your finances. Let's begin there." He suggested I take steps to secure important items, medical files, identification, insurance forms, and start a formal paper trail. I did exactly that. I moved sensitive documents into a locking cabinet in the guest room and created a digital archive on my laptop. I didn't share this with Quincy. I didn't need confrontation. I needed preparation. Then came the bank alert, a failed login attempt to my new checking account. I called immediately, changed all passwords, added dual authentication, and flagged the activity. My lawyer considered it suspicious and noted it in our records. He called it financial harassment in potential form. Track everything, he told me. Around the same time, I received messages from mutual acquaintances. Quincy had begun telling people I'd abandoned her during a family crisis. One friend even sent me screenshots, Quincy suggesting I was lashing out due to the surgery cancellation, not acknowledging what really happened. I didn't defend myself. I saved the screenshots. I confronted Quincy again. No yelling. Just clarity. Unless the money is returned, I'm filing for separation. This can't continue. She cried. Said she didn't mean to hurt me. Promised to fix it. But her actions didn't align. She stayed up late scrolling on her phone, avoided meaningful conversation, made no moves to replace the money. And Ambrose? Still silent. That's when I called my sister again. She offered to let me stay with her if things escalated. I packed a duffel bag with basics, just in case, and placed it in my car trunk. I also took irreplaceable items out of the house, heirlooms, photos, a hard drive with family archives. Nothing dramatic. Just prudent. I reminded Quincy, one last time, if the funds weren't returned by Friday, she needed to find another place to stay by Sunday. No shouting. No ultimatums. Just truth. She didn't respond. She just watched. Sunday came. The money never reappeared. I told her she had to leave. She stood frozen, then said she had nowhere to go, even though the notice and separation paperwork had been served days earlier. When she didn't move, I called my lawyer. He confirmed I had every right to file for exclusive use of the home, citing both financial betrayal and worsening medical risk. We filed immediately. Instead of packing, Quincy changed tactics. She became unusually kind, offering to cook, cleaning laundry, even buying groceries on credit. But I stayed out of the way, kept my room locked, recorded conversations when needed. My lawyer had warned me this might happen. It did. Then Ambrose reappeared, through a text from a new number. He said he wanted to talk like men, that he didn't mean for things to go sideways. I blocked him immediately. I told Quincy directly, her brother was not to contact me under any circumstances. I would not entertain misdirection disguised as apologies. Next, I visited the bank to request a formal wire transfer report. I wanted timestamps, routing details, every confirmation they had. I printed everything and handed it to Mr. Holden, who added it to our growing legal file. Then came another phone call, from a former friend. Quincy said you locked her out of the account, they whispered. She's saying you're using this surgery to punish her. I sent that friend 3 files, the wire receipt, the hospital's cancellation email, and a text message from Ambrose thanking Quincy for helping, even if it messed with his brother-in-law's timing. The friend went quiet. Then they apologized. They never replied to her again. Still, Quincy persisted. She accused me, one final time, of choosing money over marriage. I said, you didn't choose marriage either. You chose your brother's comfort over my surgery. She left the room without a word. I filed for financial protection the next day. With medical proof from my specialist, I asked the court to grant me control over our remaining assets. The court agreed to a hearing date. That week, Quincy's behavior shifted again. She knocked on my door at night, crying, pleading. Other nights, she banged drawers and slammed cupboards. One evening, I caught her standing silently outside my room at 2:30 in the morning, muttering to herself. I didn't engage. I noted every incident in a written log. I backed up security footage and saved audio clips to a drive. My lawyer advised I begin preparing for a restraining order. You're not overreacting, he told me. You're protecting yourself. By the end of that week, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. My door had a camera. My car was pre-packed. Every important file had 2 backups. My sister checked on me every night. And despite all of it, Quincy still hadn't acknowledged what she'd done. Not once did she attempt to recover the funds. Not once did she admit to crossing a line. All I received were tears, vague promises, and long silences. So I did what I had to. 3 days later, she was officially served with legal separation papers. The legal papers were delivered on a Wednesday evening. I handed them to Quincy in the living room, said nothing, and walked back to my room. She opened the envelope slowly, eyes darting between the lines. Then she crumpled it and dropped it on the floor. What followed was something I hadn't expected. First came the sound of breaking glass, a lamp in the hallway. Then the kitchen cabinet doors slammed one by one until the bottom hinge of one snapped loose. She stormed through the house like a storm without warning. When she picked up a chair and flung it across the room, I called the police. They arrived quickly. I showed them the legal documents, the printed receipts, and a log of recent disturbances. They were calm but firm. They offered her 2 choices: calm down and remain cooperative, or leave for the night to prevent further escalation. She chose the latter. Coat on, she left without speaking. An officer stayed outside until she walked off our street. That night, I changed every lock. The front, the back, the garage. I installed 2 visible security cameras, one above the front door, one facing the back porch, and added a third, hidden near the gate. I uploaded all the recordings to a secure cloud and gave copies to Mr. Holden. We immediately began filing for a temporary restraining order. 2 days later, Quincy's brother Ambrose posted a public message online. It didn't mention me by name, but it didn't need to. He described a controlling family member who had cut ties with compassion and used illness as leverage. He tagged mutual friends. It was clearly about me. I didn't reply. I didn't react. I just took screenshots, dated them, and sent them to my lawyer. The story would be told, legally, not emotionally. That afternoon, the court approved initial dates for both the restraining order hearing and financial mediation. The documentation was strong, and the court acknowledged a clear breach of financial trust and domestic stability. Mr. Holden told me to prepare for testimony, and to gather any remaining evidence that could establish a pattern. By now, Quincy was gone from the house more often than not. When she was there, she avoided my room, cooked quiet meals, and scrolled through her phone for hours. She made no mention of the paperwork. No apology. Just a kind of awkward normalcy, as if pretending would erase everything. But it didn't. 2 mornings later, there was a knock on my door. It was Quincy and her mother. They stood together on the porch. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. I had the restraining order documents in my hand. I reminded them calmly that Quincy was not allowed inside until the hearing. Her mother tried to plead, soft, sad words about family and mistakes, but I interrupted gently. This isn't a conversation I'm willing to have again. They left. I went back inside and blocked her mother's number permanently. That same day, Mr. Holden filed a small claims lawsuit against Ambrose, seeking restitution for the unauthorized transfer. The evidence included bank logs, statements from the hospital, and even Ambrose's own online post. The case wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. But strange things started happening again. Within a week, my old inbox, linked to past shared accounts, was flooded with spam. Over 200 junk emails in 2 days. Then robocalls, scam messages asking for bank details, and phishing attempts using names I hadn't seen in years. I shut it all down, created a new address, updated my phone, and restricted my contact list to 3 people, my sister, my lawyer, and my manager. Then, a rare stroke of hope. The hospital called me early on a Friday. A cancellation had opened a new surgery slot, 3 weeks from now. If I could make the payment, they'd hold it for me. I didn't answer right away. I needed a moment. Then I called my sister and told her everything. She didn't hesitate. "How much?" she asked. Later that night, I received a message from a coworker. Without telling me, some of them had quietly started a crowdfunding pool at work. No drama. No public posts. Just a small circle asking for help. Within 48 hours, they raised nearly half of what I needed. Between that and my sister's help, I was almost there. By Monday, I called the hospital and confirmed the date. I made the payment. The staff confirmed everything, the surgeon, the recovery plan, even the pre-op checkup dates. For the first time in weeks, I had something that couldn't be taken away. Something I had fought for. Something I had earned. 2 days before the surgery, I packed my essentials, clothes, medical forms, and a folder of signed documents. I left the house quietly and moved into my sister Lenore's home. Her guest room was already set up, clean linens, fresh towels, a small desk by the window. She'd arranged everything with a quiet, comforting precision. I informed the hospital that Lenore would be my emergency contact and that I would be recovering at her place. They confirmed everything without hesitation and sent over post-op instructions. Lenore read through them with care. "Don't worry," she said. "We've got this." I didn't tell Quincy I had left. There was no need. My attorney confirmed she had no legal grounds to contest where I stayed. She had already been served, and the court filings were clear. Then, the day before surgery, I received an unexpected message, this time from my company's human resources department. Before the restraining order had been finalized, Quincy had used an alternate email to contact them. The message suggested I was emotionally unstable and under extreme medical pressure. It didn't include specifics, but the tone was accusatory. I forwarded the email to Mr. Halden immediately. HR assured me it would be treated as a private matter unrelated to my performance. Still, it rattled me. I added the message to the restraining order case file. Later that week, the judge reviewed all submitted materials, police reports, security footage, the attempted bank login, and now, the workplace message. The order was extended. It now blocked all direct and indirect contact, including via employer, mutual friends, or any third party. A few days later, I received a call from an old neighbor back near my house. He said he'd seen Quincy walking around the block late at night. Once at 11:30 p.m., then again after 1 a.m. It struck him as odd, especially with police having recently visited. I logged into the security feed remotely. There she was, twice, walking slowly past the property. I saved the footage, timestamped it, and sent it to the authorities. They issued a formal warning and noted that any repeat could lead to trespassing charges. In response, Mr. Halden filed an emergency motion to freeze all remaining joint assets. We cited sustained harassment and the risk of further financial interference. The judge responded swiftly, granting me full control of our accounts until the legal separation resolved. Around that same time, Quincy's brother was served the lawsuit notice. He didn't reply, not to the court, not to us. Mr. Halden said we'd proceed with a default judgment if he failed to show. We compiled every document, wire transfer records, Quincy's acknowledgement messages, and Ambrose's public posts. Then, at last, the surgery came. It went smoothly. No complications, no delays. I woke up sore, but alive, stable, and surrounded by a capable medical team. Lenore was there when I opened my eyes, hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she said softly. Recovery wasn't easy. I was weak, moving slowly, dependent on help for even the smallest things. But Lenore and her kids made the house feel warm. Her youngest, little Merritt, kept asking questions about my medicine schedule, offering crayons and crackers as support. It was humbling. And healing. The physical therapy started a few days later, light walking, basic stretches. Each milestone felt monumental, standing up on my own, walking to the mailbox, climbing a single stair. I kept a recovery journal. Lenore kept encouraging me. But even in that calm, more shadows from the past appeared. Screenshots surfaced again. Mutual friends began forwarding Quincy's latest online posts, cryptic updates about betrayal and family broken by selfishness. She didn't use my name, but the implications were clear. One post included a photo from our honeymoon, cropped and blurred. One mutual contact replied directly to her, "You forgot to mention the $19,000 you took." The post disappeared within hours. I continued therapy, physical and emotional. One session at a time, I began organizing my life again. The pressure from months of conflict, the weight of fear and betrayal, started to lift. Then came the next phone call from Mr. Holden. Quincy had finally retained legal counsel. With Quincy's legal team now involved, the separation process accelerated. Mr. Holden said we could expect more aggressive filings and attempts at negotiation, but to hold the line. "This isn't about bitterness," he reminded me, "this is about principle and healing." Soon after, Quincy's attorney proposed a private settlement. They offered a small lump sum if I would agree to dismiss the restraining order, drop all civil claims, and close the recovery case against Ambrose. I declined. My response was simple and final: I want full restitution. And I want the truth on record. The next day, her attorney filed a countersuit notice. It alleged emotional distress caused by the restraining order and claimed the situation had left Quincy isolated and suffering. Mr. Holden filed a motion to dismiss. Attached were the police reports, the door camera footage, the workplace contact attempt, and a comprehensive timeline of events. Over 60 pages. The court accepted our filing and scheduled a hearing. A few days later, a message arrived from a new social media account. It accused me of ruining a family and abandoning someone in crisis. The language was familiar. I traced the account to one of Quincy's cousins using public username data and mutual connections. I blocked the account and forwarded everything to my lawyer. Then another filing came. Quincy now requested spousal support. Her team argued that she had sacrificed professional growth for the marriage and was now financially dependent. We responded with tax records from the past 4 years, documented freelance earnings, and emails showing her reluctance to follow through on job opportunities. I also gathered character statements. My manager wrote about my focus and stability during recovery. A friend who had seen the aftermath firsthand contributed a clear, factual account of what happened. Each statement was calm, documented, and honest. Quincy's legal team attempted to argue that the house was jointly acquired. Mr. Holden presented the mortgage, the deed, and payment history, all in my name and dated years before we were married. It was clear the property was legally mine and excluded from joint claims. The court scheduled a preliminary hearing to review the evidence. Quincy didn't attend. She missed the hearing without any justification. The judge issued a warning and a fine. Her absence weakened her credibility and helped solidify our case. Mr. Holden noted, "Every no-show helps us build a cleaner path to a full dismissal." Meanwhile, I returned to work full-time. My employer, incredibly supportive throughout, adjusted my workload and offered extra flexibility. They placed me in a quieter division and gave me time off when needed for court dates. I found comfort in routine, projects, small wins, a clearer sense of direction. We filed a motion for exclusive property designation on the house, reaffirming it as separate from the marriage. The court granted it. Quincy was legally barred from making any further claims on the property or attempting to re-enter without permission. The civil recovery case against Ambrose was now fully scheduled. Despite receiving notice, he still hadn't responded. We prepared the affidavit with every detail, screenshots, messages, and the critical bank logs showing his account receiving the funds. Meanwhile, I stayed focused on recovery, physically and emotionally. I avoided social media, blocked known agitators, and leaned into therapy. Each week, my strength grew, and my patience deepened. I wasn't just building a case, I was rebuilding a life. Quincy's online posts continued sporadically. Indirect and cryptic, but the message was always the same: she was the victim. This time, she shared blurry photos of our old apartment and a journal quote about being discarded by selfish love. Another friend reached out with a concerned message and screenshots. "I think she's trying to bait you," they wrote. I thanked them, saved the images, and moved on. No reaction. No retaliation. Only facts, dates, and steady steps forward. Then came the most telling update of all: Ambrose was officially in default. He hadn't responded to the court and had ignored every opportunity to present his side. The judge ruled in our favor. He was ordered to repay the full amount. With interest. The court's decision was swift and final. Ambrose was ordered to repay the full amount of the transferred funds, with interest. Though he still hadn't responded in court, a default judgment was entered. His wages would now be garnished until the full sum was returned. Within 3 weeks, I received the first payment. It wasn't everything, but it was something. A physical symbol of justice slowly restoring what had been taken. At the same time, Quincy's online behavior escalated. Her cryptic posts gave way to more direct ones: photos from our past, quotes from old messages, captions accusing me of being manipulative and calculating. She still avoided naming me, but everyone knew. That's when I gave Mr. Halden the green light. He filed a contempt motion for violating the restraining order through indirect harassment. The judge reviewed the social media activity and issued a formal warning: one more incident would carry financial penalties, or jail time. I'd had enough. With my health recovering and my finances stabilizing, it was time to bring this story to its rightful conclusion. We filed for divorce. The grounds were clear: financial betrayal, emotional harm, repeated legal violations. Quincy received the notice and, for the first time, went quiet. During this time, my doctor encouraged me to begin therapy, not just physical, but emotional. I hesitated at first. I felt functional. But once sessions began, I realized how much I had buried. I hadn't given myself permission to process any of it. Each week, I peeled back layers: fear, anger, disappointment, and began rebuilding a stronger internal foundation. Meanwhile, I hired a financial advisor. Together, we reviewed everything: assets, debts, accounts, recovery plans. We opened a new trust, updated every insurance document, and revised all emergency contacts. I removed Quincy's name from every form. I added my sister, her husband, and my manager at work. I created a digital emergency file, stored securely online and backed up in print. Around this time, I received an unexpected email, from an old, inactive account. The sender, Quincy. A long message, starting with, "I've been thinking about everything." I didn't read past the first paragraph. I screenshot it, forwarded it to my attorney, and shut the account down for good. Later that week, we finalized the divorce filings. No delays, no mediation. The court reviewed all documents and ruled in my favor. Quincy was denied spousal support and barred from further claims on the house or my income. The judge noted her conduct during the proceedings and her absence in key hearings. Ambrose, too, had started falling behind on payments again. The court approved additional measures: tax refund seizures and freezing of secondary accounts. The recovery would continue until the balance was paid in full. With every court document signed, every restriction granted, I felt lighter. But Quincy wasn't done. More indirect posts appeared, this time from family members. One cousin accused me of destroying a marriage for pride. Another said I was unforgiving. I sent screenshots to my lawyer, and the judge granted a permanent restraining order. It explicitly banned not only direct contact, but also social media posts, third-party messaging, and indirect defamation. It was finally over. I used part of the recovered funds to settle the last of my emergency debts: credit cards, a loan from my sister. Then, quietly, I made a donation to a nonprofit that helps patients access critical medical procedures. I did it anonymously. It was my way of closing a chapter, giving meaning to what had once nearly broken me. I also rebuilt my emergency savings from scratch. This time, protected by legal safeguards, account locks, and restricted access. I automated contributions with each paycheck, knowing I'd never allow myself to be financially exposed again. And then, silence. Peace, for the first time in a year. I took a short trip to a lakeside cabin with Lenore and her kids. We cooked simple meals, played card games, walked in the woods. No court emails, no camera alerts, no police calls. Just laughter, rest, and a crackling fire at night. When I returned to work, my role had shifted. My manager placed me in a mentorship position. I was tasked with guiding junior staff, helping them manage stress, decision-making, and unexpected challenges. I told them only what they needed to know. I left the rest behind. I don't look back much anymore. I didn't ask for this war, but I didn't run from it. I faced it, I protected myself, and I honored the people who stood beside me. I didn't let lies rewrite my story. And now, with every breath and every step forward, I remind myself of one truth. It wasn't about revenge. It was about the rebuild. Thank you all for watching the video, and see you soon.